to Reviews with Elaine, because I have opinions. And today's opinions will be about The Maker of Spells by Jenny Okell. Okay, so this book gave me a good bit of feels, and not even ones I was really expecting. Like, it hit me more than I really expected it to. It did take me a minute to get into it, but once I was in, like, the last 200 pages went by like that. I planned on reading about 100 of them last night, and I sat down and just read the entire end of the book. But before I go further, I do need to specify, for transparency's sake, the author sent me this book for free. It's not an official arc, because the book's been out for a while, but I made a random joke on Threads about how I wished I was a big influencer so I could just get random books in the mail like some of them do, and this author was like, hey, I got you, and just sent me her book. And that honestly made me very nervous, because I was like, oh my god, what if I don't like it? She gave me her book. I really want to be able to say nice things about it. And thank God in heaven, not only do I have nice things to say about this book, I found this book incredibly interesting to talk about. So The Maker of Spells is about a spellwright, basically a wizard, named Juno. She is being sent to a foreign country called Arisia as a diplomat to negotiate with the king, who has issued Juno's queen a marriage proposal that reads a bit more like an ultimatum than an expression of love. Arisia and Juno's home country of Demetera are still recovering from a war they fought 20 years ago, and there are rumors that Arisia has been amassing its army again. To complicate things even further, Juno was engaged to Queen Artemis until quite recently. Now, Juno is plunged into a country she has never been to, full of dangerous sorcerers, disingenuous diplomats, and secrets, where she will have to find a third option that's not Artemis marrying a king who will take control of her entire country, or a war. Luckily, Juno does find some unexpected allies, including maybe the castle steward, a man named Lawrence, and another foreign diplomat named Hespera, both of whom seem to be interested in something more than just diplomacy with Juno. So yeah, first, because of this little tag that I just gave you, I want to say that this book has a lot more romance than I expected, and I was really glad for that. One of the reasons I was a bit worried about picking this book up was I knew that it was a court intrigue book. I mean, hell, the three parts are called Diplomacy, Espionage, and Alliance. And I'm not really super fond of court intrigue books, but I'd really liked the sample that I read of this one. And yeah, one of the things I love about books is if the prose, the characters, and the tone is right, in some ways, it almost doesn't matter what the plot is. And don't get me wrong, I am objectively a plot and character reader. Those are the two things that make me decide whether or not I like a book. You can have the most amazing themes in the world. You can have beautiful allegories. You can have prose that is like God-kissed. But if the plot or characters bore or annoy me, I'm out. But the writing can be what makes the plot and characters interesting. And this time, yeah, the way the plot is told, the focus of where the characters are looking, and yeah, even the focus on the romance, made it a lot less of a court intrigue book for me and more a traditional fantasy, which I'm a lot more into. And overall, the plot of basically diplomat figures out who she can trust and what secrets everyone is hiding is not my kind of plot. But I don't care in the end, because we've got great characters, we've got really interesting writing, we've got a light tone with just enough high fantasy voice that it feels like you're reading Tolkien-esque fantasy without the plodding nature that a lot of those fantasy books have. And part of what helps this is the focus on the romance. Inherently, as I've discussed in other reviews, romance as a genre focuses a lot more internal on emotions and on, like, deeper feelings, and that gives you a much better view of characters than a lot of other books have, and that's what made me really into the characters here. And also, it's just an interesting romance. We start with Juno absolutely brokenhearted, and it's weird how rare it is for a fantasy to include characters who have had multiple previous relationships that come up, are serious, and for a lack of a better word, were normal relationships. Like, yeah, you do get a lot of characters with tragic backstories where they had previous lovers who were horrifically abusive or who turned out to be secretly pure evil or were eaten by a dragon. But just like having a past relationship that didn't quite end the way you wanted but was otherwise a perfectly normal relationship, weirdly rare in these books. But here, Juno had a good relationship with Artemis that ended somewhat abruptly, but otherwise is a source of good memories for her. And I really liked that. She also has multiple possible other love interests who are drastically different genders, and have really different vibes. And the romance itself, what we get of it, is really sweet. It's troubled, of course, because of the situation they're in, but you are rooting for them. And then there's the ending, but we're going to get to that in a minute, and I'm only going to talk about it vaguely because I can't talk about it too much without spoilers. But I do think what makes the romance so interesting here is the fact that Juno is older than a lot of fantasy and a lot of romantasy protagonists. She's nearly 40. And I wasn't entirely sure throughout most of the book how old she was. Like, it's not directly mentioned until, like, I think it's like 3/4 of the way through. But I knew from the beginning that this woman was clearly in her 30s. Like, I could tell she had life experiences. She's not a naive child. Like, she's still into romance. She's still focused on it. She's still having that moment of butterflies. But it's not that feeling of, oh, I've never felt this before. And I really liked that. Like, she sometimes gives me serious mom friend energy, and it just gives all of her flirtations a very different flavor. Also, I will admit, it made it all feel a lot weightier. Like, I really wanted Juno to have a happy ending because her previous happy endings hadn't happened enough. And, like, that's not something you get from those stories of first loves. So I really liked the fact that there was that extra layer here. Also, honestly, I don't know how many times I've heard people begging for fantasy books with older, mature female protagonists, and here is one. This one, I also admit, gave the entire book a different flavor. Like, it's just a very different fantasy vibe when you're following someone who has lived a bit of life, who is not, wide-eyed and innocent, and I really appreciate that. I also, of course, love seeing bisexual main characters in queer norm societies. That's just fun. And as far as I can tell, this world doesn't have any problems with any kind of sapphic or Achillean romances. As far as I could tell in the book, it's not ever mentioned if there is, like, an idea of bisexual, gay, straight, or if it is just, like, you fall in love with people, and who knows who those people are. Which I like. There is also a gender fluid character, and I really loved the fact that this was a new concept for our main character. Like, this is not something she's used to running into, and she stumbles a bit figuring out the language around this person and, figuring out how to talk about them respectfully, but she still accepts it, figures it out on her own, and moves forward. And that's really lovely to see in books. But there are really 3 more things I want to talk about here. I want to talk about the structure of this book, the dragons and magic system, and the ending. First, the structure. Yeah, this book broke a lot of what people consider rules when it comes to structuring of books. Like, the first 3 or 4 chapters all feature flashbacks that cover more of the word count than the actual current timeline. And just across the entire book, there are a metric ton of flashbacks. I would say we spend maybe as much as a third of the book remembering Juno's past. And, like, objectively, this is a love triangle book, but it's not really between the main character and the 2 possible current love interests. No, it's really a love triangle between Juno's feelings for her past romance with Artemis and one of the 2 current love interests. And that's really interesting. Hell, we even get a semi-spicy scene in one of the flashbacks. And I really think it all works wonderfully. It helps to be what adds that weight of the past to the book. Like, I liked being able to see a lot of Juno's past. And it gives her this feeling of having a real history, a real backstory, and real maturity. And I've seen so much advice online for telling authors to cut all flashbacks. And I am currently writing a book that has a butt-ton of flashbacks, and it was really reassuring for me to read this one and go, yeah, no, flashbacks really can work. it can be very effective. Now, that being said, it does slow down the beginning in the bit. Like, it is what made it so hard for me to get into it in the first couple of chapters. But it adds so much that, to me, it was definitely worth it. Otherwise, the structure is pretty conventional. We pretty much are strictly just following Juno's POV through the events. It is entirely in her point of view. There's not even that much time skipping in it. And that does mean there's also a lot of calmer scenes. Hell, the book itself just generally felt calmer than some of the events that happen would imply. Like, if I were to give you the full synopsis, you would assume that this is a very, very dramatic book, and it doesn't really feel like that when reading it. And that really worked for me. Like, one of the things I don't like about court intrigue books is it feels like a constant back and forth of building alliances, being betrayed, building new alliances, being betrayed, figuring out everything you knew is wrong and having your entire worldview stripped from you and then another one piled on top of you, and then you find out that's wrong. And it all just feels a bit like a soap opera to me, and it does not feel realistic, it does not feel organic, and it feels really like authors are just, or not just authors, like, it appears in movies, it appears everywhere, but everywhere I see this, it just feels like they're going for the cheap moment of, oh my god! And that's not really what I go to books for, but this one felt a lot more authentic to what I feel like real diplomacy would be like. And that does mean there are a lot of quiet conversations where Juno can feel what the others are, that they're hiding something. Sometimes she can guess what it is, sometimes she can't. And she's just building information, not constantly having everything she thought wiped out and a new worldview dropped on top of her. No, it felt like a gathering of information, and that feels a lot more realistic to me. Also, the book did not expect me to believe that Juno is some super genius of unmatched Sherlock Holmesian deductive ability, and that's another thing I don't really like about court intrigue books. These characters are often, like, either obscenely good at it, and you're just like, how the hell did you come to that conclusion? Or the other side of that, when they're just, like, absolute morons, and as a reader you're going, hey, that guy's not trustworthy. That guy's not trustworthy. That guy has a goatee and keeps stroking it while talking about how soon he shall run the world. And that's what I don't like about those kind of books. But no, here, Juno is smart enough, bold enough, honest enough, and straightforward enough to feel human, but be able to succeed in this complex situation. I also love the fact that there are characters in this book of differing levels of diplomatic ability. Like, there are some that are better liars than others. There are some that are just flagrantly bad at it. There's a kid that is trying so hard and is so bad at it. And that's something that feels really realistic and human to me. And even though he's a bit of an ass, it's also somehow very endearing. And that was all me getting distracted. That's not what I was meaning to talk about. What I meant to talk about next was dragons and magic. I really loved the dragons in this book. We get dragons who are both animalistic and just, you know, simple beasts, but also magical beings with the wisdoms of ages. Like, they are both at the same time. And I love it. I love that they were feathered and a bit more bird-like. I love that they are deeply tied to the magic of the world. And I loved the relationship they had with the Tethians, I don't know how to pronounce that. But I loved the minor interactions we see them have with humans throughout the book. And I also really think that they have the right level of foreshadowed and used in the book. Like, they aren't in the book that much, considering, you know, they're featured on the cover, but considering how they work in this world, it feels right. They are sort of overpowered, but also almost deity-like, and that really works for me. But also the magic system itself is really well thought out and well explained without being too explained. Like, I love fantasy. That is my genre of choice. But I am not one of those readers that wants 10 pages of exposition explaining the deep, almost scientific exposition level detailing how complex the magic system is. Like, most of the time, all you need to tell me is magic is complex, here's how one spell works, to give me an idea of what magic does in this world. And this book does a great job of giving us enough straightforward exposition and showing us just enough spells that I feel like I can explain how it works without the information having weighed down the text. And there's enough of a mix of the unusual and the familiar that it's really interesting magic. I really liked how the limited the magic was. Like, it's not one of those books where magic can basically do anything. And I feel like the way that the magic affects the world feels really well balanced, which is ironic because there's a lot about balancing in the book. But it really works for me, and the world just really feels organic. But there is one other thing that I want to discuss, and it's the ending. I really liked where the ending went. There are a couple of twists that I feel like really worked really well, but I will say I felt the ending pushed through a few moments too quickly. Specifically, there's these two big twists that happen in the last 3 chapters that I don't feel like they were given the time necessary for how big of twists they were. And no spoilers here, I'm not going to tell you what they are, but there is a moment when an unnamed side character does something big that majorly affects the climax. And I really loved that it happened. It was really unexpected but human and felt thematically resonant. But we are given so little time for us or the main characters to decompress from it that it ended up feeling almost too easy and too pat. Like, it just sort of slides by and ends up feeling like a Deus Ex Machina in a way that doesn't feel as organic as the rest of the story. And the other big twist happens on, like, the second to last page. It's 1 page from the end of the book, and I was sort of expecting it to come. Like, I was gonna be pissed if something about that plot point didn't get that little bit of resolution, but it's a page from the end! I need time for feelings here! And it is very much set up for the next book, and yeah, I know that there's going to be a book 2, because hopefully it says book 1 on the cover, but it doesn't quite read as either the calm teaser that you get in at the end of books that will just be like, hey guys, there will be a second book, here's some of the plot points that you're gonna need. Nor does it feel like the cliffhanger, oh my god, how can you leave me right there kind of ending. It's somewhere in the middle, and I felt like I either needed more time for the reader and the characters to decompress, or for it to be one of those last line revelations kind of moment, where it's literally just the last line, it says, and this, and you're like, oh, okay, thanks for that cliffhanger. But otherwise, I really did enjoy this book. I suggest it for readers who like romantasy, but want a more mature protagonist, are okay with the romance being a little bit unresolved by the end of book 1, like that high fantasy feel, but still want a lighter read. It was a bit slow at the start, I have mentioned that, but it's fully worth it to keep going. Though one more warning that I just forgot to give anywhere else in this review is there is a pet death in this book. I feel like it's given the weight and gravitas it deserves, and it didn't feel gratuitous, it felt like it was necessary, but especially considering the discourse that's been going on book threads recently, I feel like I have to mention that. But yeah, otherwise, I fully recommend this one. I really liked it. I think you should read this book too. There's a kitty cat! I have intelligent conversations with my cats. He likes to sit in my lap while I do reviews, but he likes to get pets first. My love, my life, my light. Sit. Ah, claws in the knee, claws in the knee, claws in the knee, let go. There you go, baby boy.